So I'm Dan, and I'm the director for this project.
My name's Neve, and I'm the DOP of Lotus Flower.
My name's Owen, and I'm the sound recordist and sound designer for Lotus Flower.
I'm Christopher Thompson, and I was first AD on Lotus Flower.
This project began with an image just outside my bedroom window, and it was my neighbour in a bridesmaid's dress. As she was spinning around in it, kids were kind of throwing ketchup and mayonnaise on it, and just in that image of this woman being totally enthralled by, whatever's going on, it's like, okay, there's a story here, so let's try and make it something coherent. And then around that came this idea of Tommy and the relationship that Tommy has with this weird, mysterious being, the idea of putting her in a weird place to start off with, which we then kind of explore the meaning of throughout, which I don't know how features are made, but that's the beginning of our little adventure, you could say.
Yeah, so it was a 30 scene thing, and it really, it did focus on one character specific, or it was two. It's Tommy and Shan as it is now, but it was much more Tommy's story, whereas Shan played that opposing role, but it wasn't so much about two different people. It's hard to explain, but originally it was just about working down a 30 scene thing into something doable as a 15-minute short film, which everybody was surprised by at first. They were like, why do we have to condense this? And then we did. So then I thought, wow, an anthology would be really cool, because you have 4 distinctive acts, and we have these 4 characters, because there were about 5 or 6 in that original outline, but there were 4. When I talk about those forming images, there were 4 that stood out, and those were the 4 I wanted to run with. And I was like, we could do an anthology, that'd be really cool. And then we kind of considered, well, that's 3.5 minutes per character. Very tricky if we're keeping with the story, and that's where things were really kind of strange, because fundamentally it's a feature story. It's for a feature film, but we're condensing it into 15 minutes. So we took it from 4 characters and did it to 2. So that's in a sense 7 minutes per character, if you will, or 7:30, which is nice and chunky, but at the same time we're still dealing with so many things. So it was about condensing it, but I don't know. It was tough. It was just really tricky to get it short, but I think it kind of worked out.
Very official.
Oh, don't leave without you, went too fast.
Could stay away longer if you give a grandson some extra allowance.
Do the work and you'll get the allowance. And then you can find yourself a cheaper hotel. Got money in that.
Just a second opinion, I'd guess. But if there was a couple of times where I felt like I was to step in and say something, and then we were able to try different things on set or before or in practice, and I feel like the combination of the majority of Dan's creativity and my bit creativity here and there when required came out to make the best product possible.
I think the main challenge was learning how to control light in dark spaces and how to shoot in darkness, because I didn't want any grain to be in the film, but I wanted it to have the moody film noir style for the criminal scenes. So that was probably really, really tough. The next thing that was quite tough was the scale and how long the film was, and all the different scenes and the locations. It was a big step up from what I did in second year, so it took a lot more time and mental energy to figure everything out, make sure everything was in line, made sure I knew where the light was coming from, what lights I needed. So it really got me to think a lot more harder about what I was doing, since I was in so many different locations with so many different types of lighting. in comparison to my second year film, which took place in a single room with a single lighting setup. So that was quite challenging. But dealing with that sort of stuff was obviously in the storyboarding phases, being able to talk about ideas rather than think about them in my head and overthink them. And I'm the stressed person. I get stressed, so this was a challenge, but it was a good push to kind of figure out how much planning and thought I should be putting into a lot more stuff. And now I shoot things a lot more with my head rather than purely with my eyes. I can now look at something and think what needs to go into it rather than what I used to do in second year and in first year. So yeah.
Banter. So that was nice. I definitely think it was fun, but it was still professional. We tried very hard to try and manoeuvre and navigate around particular areas on set, especially in tight enclosed spaces, but I had my boomop, Jack, and he wasn't actually Jem to work with. He always found a way to sneak into places, whether that be up on a stool or cramped just behind the camera, and I would just sit down with the recorder and just cry in the side of the room, hoping it'd go right. But all in all, I definitely think it was a nice relationship. The whole team had good chemistry, really. So it's kind of nice to work among people I've never worked with before.
Scouting crew was an interesting one because I'm not used to doing that, and I kind of had to sell the project to each respective member and their department in order for them to get on board. So I turned to people that I have worked with on a more kind of acquaintance level before, like in first year of uni. With our second year of uni kind of being cancelled out mainly due to COVID, it's almost like the experience that I wanted out of this year is what I was looking to get out of my second year, and then come third year was, okay, I've now got a good standing with people who I actually want to go out and work with, whereas I was wanting to, I kind of had to take a leap here, which I'm glad I did. I think I tried to sell that awkwardness to it, and the idea that as a director I'm not 100% confident in what I want to get out of this film, and I think each member kind of understood that. So for example, with my DOP, I saw that they were what they had done in the past in second year stylistically was what I was wanting to shoot for, in terms of like how colour was used and how the relationship between subject and the rest of the frame, like what we can do there with it, and the fact that we've got different perspectives into this world with each of the characters that we're looking to develop. You wouldn't expect like sound. It's, whilst it being a quiet story, I need someone to trust with sound who can kind of fill in that awkward, either fill in the awkward gaps or make them even more awkward, because there is something very kind of introspective and contemplative when it is just Shan and Tommy, and whilst we can present that in frame in front of the camera, we also need to reflect that choice creatively with sound. You know, everything flows together fluidly, so in terms of film language, so I need to make sure that each member, I approach them in the same way, so that there's no, ego. I wanted it to be just a good experience for everyone, selling the fact that I'm not established yet, and they could perhaps be a vehicle for me to actually develop a certain style and way of working. Just being humble with it, keeping it very grounded and very conversational, making sure that no one feels silenced creatively, and that goes of course with our actors. they've seen a lot more success in the industry than any of us have, and it was interesting to see what different backgrounds they all came from, or whether that be theatre or like commercials or other kind of student films from different areas of the country, even internationally, as Mariana has experienced. I'm still keeping it grounded, I'm still keeping it friendly and, again, conversational, and I'm letting them in on that awkward energy, because once that barrier is broken, I can be as, I guess, weird and as wordy as I need to be in order for them to grasp what I'm wanting out of them performance-wise. I think when we had those initial meetings, I was just kind of waffling on, almost as if it was coming from a script. Actually, you know, the intricacies of this little story of ours, and you know what I had in mind influence-wise for each character, and where each character falls in. So yeah, whilst I want you to have an understanding of your character, let's talk a little bit about your relationship to these other characters. So I think they saw kind of how passionate I was on that front, and were happy to jump on board. They made it very easy because they're just brilliant at what they do. A lot of my work came from the rehearsing and just the first few conversations we had, but then once we got on set, it was just a case of reminding them, oh, remember when we spoke about this? Or, okay, that was great, Reese, for example, but let's think back to perhaps how your body language is, you know, with this later scene being like the end point of this individual journey for you. Let's have your character feel that power rush, for example, stuff like that. Again, they made it. I will always sing their praise. I hope to work with them again. Very cool, very swag. I would say it has to do with the way that we structured the narrative. I think me and Sam, from the beginning, were thinking about how we go about exploring these different perspectives onto this world, and how we go about actually making a world. So we even had this like anthology type thing where we follow the same story, the same sort of chain of events, but from different perspectives. It was choosing to have things develop and progress in a way, actually in a style somewhat more familiar, you know, a typical 3-act structure, and then we could, from that, harness what we want out of each scene. Then we can detect the tone and how things develop, what stylistically we want to present in each frame. That moulded, I think, as well, just the workflow of the project as well, in terms of how long it took for us to fully flesh out the script. We didn't want to cut corners, but at the same time we wanted to play to the strengths of each genre that we were looking to tap into. This has potential for a feature even, you know, there's all this backstory which we as a team are choosing to not explore. We want to be a bit ambitious on that front, and we want to put the drama side of things first compared to something more kind of grandiose Hollywood style action.
Many reasons. Firstly, I chose the Arri Alexa because when am I gonna get to use an Arri Alexa again? I'm just keeping it real. When am I gonna get to use that massive, beautiful piece of kit again? I probably wouldn't for a very long time. It's also a big camera, so I took it upon myself to give myself pain for the sake of the camera, because I thought it would be really, really nice to round off my year by shooting on it. With the lights, I often chose LEDs and things that were battery operated, so that I could utilize them in exterior spaces. In particular, I really liked using the fluorescent LED tube lights. I just really like the way that they light things. I think sometimes they can be too bright, So I think it encouraged me to use more diffusion to create a softer look than if I were to use other lights. And a lot of the time we were in quite small spaces that didn't really warrant such powerful lights. So I thought having bi-color LED panels would be useful because I could soften the light. They're more lightweight, so I would be able to handle working in smaller spaces and be able to move things around a lot more quickly because we had quite a lot of busy days with tight schedules, so having bigger lights would just mean more chaos and pain.
Yes, I can. Where did it start? Because that was like a thing that I kept getting asked, like especially by lecturers, because this is all like really developed around them, because they like giving like bits of advice while we kind of do our own thing, but like every time I come back to them, they're like, so what are the themes of the film? And I'm like, I have no idea right now, okay? But like as the story, it all kind of like serves itself. So you have the story, you have the characters, and you have the themes. I think a bit about the story and I'm like, okay, that works. And I put a character into it and I think, okay, this is how they work in the story. And then I understand now what we're kind of exploring, which is where the themes come in. I'm like, oh, this is about this like loneliness here. That's like a big thing of Tommy, but it's also like a big thing of Shan. Okay, now we have a connecting theme. And then with that theme, you go back to the story and you bring that out. It's all like serving different aspects. It's like a triangle that's like constantly intertwining. It's really cool.
A lot of it I had to think on the spot because new problems kept popping up each time. In terms of my sound script, I just stuck with it loosely just because I wanted to make sure that, okay, in the moment, what would feel right. And we were very experimental, me and Jack, especially with going around corners of the room, making sure that sound in most areas of the room had good enough takes to be used in the edit. And I'm definitely happy with how it went. Of course, there's a lot of things we could do better, but either way, I think in the time we had with what we recorded, I'm very happy.
From what I've seen, planning it, I thought, wow, this is a really good idea. I'm very excited to get involved. And seeing not only the cast that me and Dan put together, and every department, everyone coming together and showing their best, I'm very excited to see how this turns out because I think we've got a solid project here, and the film and the film will not only sound, look, and feel good, but I think it will encapsulate the hearts of the people as well.